So hello again and welcome to this webinar with Mike and Suz from WhisperClaims, who are going to be talking about how you can install R&D claims within your accountancy practice. Hello, Mike. Hello. Hello, hello, Suz. Now, what makes these sessions, as you know, what makes these sessions special is the questions that you, the community, ask as we go through. So please, if Mike or Suz says anything as they are going through, please prop the question in the Q&A box. You'll find it to the left of the raised hand feature, and I will gladly interrupt them as we go along. And as I always say, we love stupid questions. So if you've got a question you think is a bit stupid, then please pop it in the Q&A box and we will gladly answer them. Stupid questions tend to be easier to answer than the hard questions, but we will take the hard questions as well. So please just hit the Q&A box, pop it in the question box, and I will gladly interrupt them as we go along. That's enough from me. You've not come to hear me waffle on. So without further ado and a virtual round of applause, I'm going to hand you over to Mike.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon.
Go, Mike.
So I'm Mike. I'm the MD and one of the co-founders at WhisperClaims, and I'm joined by Suz.
Hi, I'm Suz. I'm the commercial manager here at WhisperClaims.
Brilliant. Thanks, Suz. Do you want to get the first slide up? Cheers. So what we're going to do, I'll give you a quick sort of intro to our business, a little bit of the background story to how we've got to where we are. And then I'm going to hand over to Suz, who's going to run us through a quick but fairly comprehensive demo of the system to give you a flavour of how it works and what we do for our customers. And then we'll flip back to me. I'll talk you through our support offering and our pricing, and then obviously we've got a Q&A at the end. But as Simon said, any questions you want to throw at us during the session, that's fine. So who are we and what are we all about? So we're empowering accountants to deliver R&D tax services with confidence. So what does that mean? I guess the first thing to say is that we recognise accountants as professional and accredited people are best placed to be delivering R&D tax services to their clients. At the same time, we also accept that R&D tax is a relatively niche and perhaps you perceive it as a complex area of tax too. Any of you who've read up on the guidance will know there's 500 pages of HMRC guidance around the scheme. And I'm sure that to many of you, that looks daunting. So what we've done is built, as it says there, award-winning software, and we'll talk to you a little bit about the awards in a second. But we've built a highly structured yet really easy to use piece of software that enables you to pull claims together really quickly and easily. And in fact, taking stats from our system, the average time it takes to put a claim together using the system is just over an hour. So that gives you a flavour of the process that Suz is going to expose you to in a minute. But coming back to this sort of term of confidence, we've wrapped a whole host of support around the software to give you that confidence to get into conversations with your clients and to launch a new R&D service. And that's a combination of learning tools, so that's training, webinars, a whole host of online support, combined with in-person support. So we've got live chat, we've got online access to experts. So if ever you need to ask somebody about the intricacies of the scheme, specifics around eligibility, even if you're in the middle of a claim working with a client, there's somebody there to help you through that. Next slide, Suz. So I mentioned awards. So over on the right-hand side here, you can see that we've been lucky enough since we launched in 2018 to win a number of awards. They're interestingly a combination of accountancy-related awards. So we've been recognised for doing great things for our customers and for the SME market as well in R&D tax. But equally, we've also won awards from the software community as well, where we've been recognised as having done something that actually is technically quite difficult to do. So we're really proud of the fact that we've been recognised in both of those ways. Over on the left-hand side of the slide, just our journey so far. So I mentioned that we launched in late 2018. So at that stage, we had a website, no customers, no revenue. Where are we today? We've got just over 160 subscribing firms nationally. The majority of whom are accountancy firms. We do have some consultants that we work with, but the majority are accountancy firms. 2,300, well, in fact, I think it's 2,350 as of this morning, claims that have gone through the platform to date. That represents just over 330 million of eligible spend, which actually, if you translate that into tax benefit, is around 80 million of tax benefit that's been delivered to the clients of our customers through using the software. That's represents about 1% of all R&D tax claims put through in the period. So, significant for us in that we've managed to get to a level where we're at a similar volume to some of the big name R&D specialist firms. So the fact that we've enabled these accountancy firms to do that is something we're really proud of. The other thing just to mention is that why do firms come to us in the first place? So why have those 160 firms sort of joined us? Few things to mention. The majority of our customers are looking to launch an R&D service for the first time. So they're coming to us because of the structured software and support wrapped around it that I mentioned. We do have a number of people who come to us who are already active in the market. They're already doing claims, but actually they're looking to increase efficiency and throughput, and they use us for that reason. And the third one is to do with consistency. So firms that are operating over multiple sites, perhaps got teams operating across multiple sites, are looking for ways in which they can bring consistency to their approach and make sure that they're representing the same brand, if you like, across those firms. And the other thing to say is that we've got a real range of claim sizes in that 330 million of eligible spend. So at the top end, the biggest claims to go through so far have been over 7 million of eligible spend, so actually substantial claims. But down at the bottom end, interestingly, we've got some really tiny ones. So smallest to go through so far has been £1,000 worth of eligible spend, so a real range of claims. The average claim size at the minute is running at about 140 million of eligible spend running through the platform. So it gives you an idea of the sort of scale of the opportunity that we're working to. So that's enough about the journey so far. I'm going to hand over to you, Suz, to walk through the demo. And as I say, ask any questions as we go.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Right, I'm just going to do a little switcheroo to change my screens around so that I can make sure that everyone can see the app. Is that good for everybody just now?
Yeah, it works for us, Suz.
Yeah, that's it. Great. Okay, so as I'm logging in, just get things going here. So just to give you guys a bit of background, when we do a demo, we usually ask if we can have an hour's of prospect's time to present, which includes a detailed tour of the app and a run through of what essentially a dummy claim might look like using dummy data. We obviously don't have that much time today. We want to make sure that there's plenty of time for questions. So I'm just going to focus on a few key areas, looking at things, as Mike said already, at a relatively high level, but do feel free to ask questions as I'm going through, because it's always nice to be interrupted. The first thing to mention, I suppose, is that there is absolutely no doubt that a user will need to have a basic level of understanding of the guidance and what essentially constitutes eligibility, so that you as the advisor can guide and coach your clients on what an eligible project looks like. And despite what certain voices within the industry may say, you do not have to be an expert in your client's area of science and technology. WhisperClaims has been designed to take you through, as Mike again said, a very structured and repeatable process to ensure that all of the right questions have been asked, and to guide your conversations with your clients to ensure that all of the corners of the guidance has been poked into. So every time you come into the app, you're going to be presented with our homepage dashboard, which is what you can see in front of you here. Just a couple of things to mention. You have access to recent clients and recent claims to enable you to easily pick up from where you last left off. You've also got a live feed running down along the bottom of the screen from our website that's just pushing out relevant content that we're posting. You manage your account using the green button in the top right hand corner here, which is going to have your initials on it. I do apologize, my mouse has gone a bit funny. There we go. Just to show you what you can see there. You can manage your profile, you can view your subscription details, you can add and remove users, and you can also see any invoices that you have too.
Suz, just before you go, I've got a question from Peter. Suz, you said that you've got to have a basic knowledge of R&D claims. Where do we get that basic knowledge from? Is it something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Mike alluded earlier on to a whole host of online support that we have on our website. So that's in the form of ebook content. We also have a YouTube channel that we'll be posting links to later on. We actually run our own in-house training course as well. So it's a one-stop shop. We run a course once a month. It's a couple of hours, very immersed into the scheme, giving you all of background knowledge about the scheme, about how to look for eligible clients, touching on things like grants and subcontracting, so all the complexities as well. And that's run by our in-house experts who also run our support line as well. So we'll again post links to that sort of thing just at the end. We've also got a ton of in-app help and support as well that I'll be showing you in just a moment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Suz. Thank you, Peter, for the question.
Okay, no problems. Great. So down to the nitty gritty. If you start working with a new company, you want to add them as a client to the app. So very briefly, to add a new company, it's very straightforward. You just go into the clients tab. Big green button is going to indicate where you can add something. I'm just going to start typing company names here. You can see I've got lots of data being pulled through. This is a direct API feed we have with Companies House that's just going to do that initial pre-population of the company name and number and do that double check to make sure that the company is limited and therefore subject to be able to claim R&D tax relief. Company sorted, and now we want to start a claim. So we jump into the workflow tab. Big green button again on the right is going to allow us to start to add a new claim. You've already got your company created, so it's just a case of selecting which company you want to add the claim to, clicking on add claim, and that's going to launch you into a fresh question set. Now there's a lot of information on this page, so as I said, I'm just going to pick out a couple of things just to mention and not go too deep just now. Running down the center of the screen, you're going to see that any claims that you have in progress, you get an indication of how far along you are in the process. You can dip in and out of the question set as many times as you need to until you feel you're in a position where you're ready to finalize the claim. Anything that's green is indicating that a claim has been completed. So as I move along this row here, you're going to see this is the finalized report here sitting in the admin ready for submission. We do give you the report in two versions. There's a PDF and a Word version. The Word version is there just to give you some flexibility to enable you to customize the document, add additional content, that sort of thing. And you also have some additional functionality behind these ellipses too. So let's get to the exciting bit. Let me take you into a claim. So this is just a training claim that I have. It's all pre-populated, which will enable us to move around the system nice and easily. So what I'm hoping to demonstrate to you today is how all of your clients' activities and all of the costs are being collated and essentially taken through a series of filtering processes to assess and understand where eligibility lies, or not, as the case may be. I'll give you a quick tour of this page just to start off with. So on the left-hand side here, you have a progress/navigation bar. So I'm just expanding these buttons so you can see all of the sections and categories that we're going to work through as we go through the claim. The system itself is built on a dynamic question set, so it's constantly flexing in the background, doing a few things, ensuring that spend is being routed accordingly, whether it's SMA or RDEC, or in some cases a bit of both. And we also do have several eligibility checkers built into the software. Those are front-loaded. Okay. On that basis, you do need to answer the questions in a linear sequence, as you may be exposed to some additional questions as you go through again, just to make sure that the app is gathering all of the data it needs to make the correct calculations at the end of the process. Every page you're on starts with a question or a statement, which is what you can see at the top here. And the way that you answer those questions or statements, we've got an example of buttons here. You're going to see sliders, you're going to see categories of multiple choice questions, tick boxes, and a free text box areas too. So lots of different ways for you to collect your client data. The idea being, though, it's been simplified down. So although the process and the scheme itself is complex, we're hoping to make the process very easy for you and your client to undertake. Every single question has its own in-app help and support. So this just goes back to the question that we had. So let me just show you that. We've got some notes, a short video, and also links that take you directly to the guidance on HMRC's website. And that's bespoke to every single question. I think the bigger thing around all of this is the overall support that we offer to our clients in person. So everywhere you are within the app, you're going to see this question mark icon. So if I just click on there, you're going to be exposed to a telephone number and our email address, so you can message us from within the app, or you can live chat us too. Our support is designed to sort of help our users with any R&D related questions. So that could be questions around eligibility, advice on the scheme. You may have a client that's got a slightly borderline project and you're just not sure it quite meets the criteria and you just want some advice. We are here to help. You can fire questions about grants, subcon, CBILS, business backs, loans, whatever it is. We'll do our best to help you. The other thing to mention on every page that you're going to see as we work through the system is at the bottom here, you're going to see dynamic feedback. So this feedback is guiding you through the process based on a very simple red, amber, green protocol. If it's green, it's giving you reassurance and confidence that you're doing a good job and you can move on to the next question. You may see some amber feedback, which is alerting you to potential weaknesses or advising you that you need to be asked some more questions based on the way that you've answered the previous question. And if you're going to see red feedback, that is telling you that the claim is potentially not viable. I can just quickly demonstrate that for you just now. So two very straightforward initial questions here are, is the company limited? Are they subject to CT? If I was to answer no to either one of these, that feedback's gone red, everything's been greyed out, I can't move back, I can't move forward. As you can imagine, our advice would always be, if you do hit one of these endpoints, we would strongly advise that you abandon the claim because the system has objectively deemed that the claim isn't eligible. However, if a mistake has been made and you need to reverse that to the way that you've answered the question or some more information has come to light, you can do so, which will enable you to move on. Okay, so the initial part of the question set is a qualification check, and this initial screening is done by you as the user. It's important that you have confidence that your client meets HMRC's minimum criteria from the get-go. So I'm just going to gently start moving through the questions just to give you a flavour of what you're being asked for. So the qualification checks essentially allow you to identify any potential issues earlier on in the process so that you can, as I said already, objectively screen out any ineligible clients quickly. Okay, so we're just at the company section now. So the app is working very quietly in the background, ensuring that expenditure is being routed correctly. So as I said already, whether it's SME or RDEC, I can quickly demonstrate how the system is flexing for you. So just looking at staff numbers, for example, one of the criteria to be able to claim under the SME scheme is to have 500 staff or less. If I horribly inflate this number here, you're going to see that feedback at the bottom of the page go amber, and we're just being advised now that we're looking at an RDEC claim rather than SME. As I said already, the system does handle both schemes at the same time, and we'll see that working as we work through the process. The nice thing about the software and an ability for you to make sure that you're going to really bring your client on board is that you can also collaborate directly with your clients. We have a collaborations feature, so collaborators within the claiming company are going to be anybody from MDs, FDs, CTOs, project managers, project leads. It's really simple to add them. Click on the collaborators tab here. You can see we've got a couple already joined us. If I want to invite somebody else, I click on the link, a form appears, I fill that out, the system will send an email with a link to the individual that we want to invite on, giving them access to the question set. Collaborators do have a restricted view of the question set. The company section is the first section that they will see, and I'll indicate at the end of the process the last part that they will see before you will continue on with your journey. Now, there are undoubtedly differing levels of seniority in terms of the people that you might want to collaborate with. So there are individuals that potentially shouldn't see sensitive information such as salaries. So if you got to a point where you did need to switch off access to the cost questions for a collaborator, you would just do that using this button here. So a collaborator can see the company and the projects, or the company, the projects, and the costs. Hopefully that.
Suz, yeah, I've got a question, and yeah. Nick's also got a question. So Nick's asked, if you have a query, can the support team see the information that you've put in, or would you have to share your screen? I suppose is a way around that if they couldn't.
Suz, do you want me to take that? Yeah. So the team have got direct access into the system, so they can see everything that you've entered in there. So there's a need for either for us to take a look at it to support you, or indeed for somebody to go in there and change something on your behalf. We can do that. So
you can get in and see everything that's going as it goes in. Brilliant. Thank you for the question, Nick. And then one from me, and this is a stupid question, but a collaborator, generally speaking, they would be the client, the customer. So if you needed information from them, some technical garbage, some technical language, or what it is that they believe helps them, you can get them to enter that data directly into the system.
That's exactly it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they do have a restricted view, but they have the ability to enter live data onto the app, and just a bit extra to that as well. And we do have a notes functionality as well within the app. So as well as collaborating directly into the fields and the sliders and the drop downs, you can also leave each other messages, which has an audit trail and who left the note, date and time, if you want to share information perhaps out of hours, that sort of thing, which is quite handy as well.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Okay, so done the qualification checks, we've understood some information about the company. The next bit is the really meaty part of the claim. So this is the project section. So it's this big section here that I'm just going to give you a little bit of a view around. So again, the system is essentially walking you through, getting you to understand where eligibility is going to be sitting. So let's pick out a couple of examples of some of the questions that you may be asked. So first one here is to do with commercial drivers. So we ask about commercial drivers in the question set to show HMRC that we understand the difference between what a commercial driver is and what technically qualifies. You've got a series of categories here that I'm just going to briefly expand so you can just get a feel for some of the options that you have. And again, through a discussion with your client, you would work through these options and identify up to 4 options that are most relevant to them and the financial period that you're assessing. Next, we're going to have a look at the type of R&D that your client is active in, and this is all around CRRD 81900. This is a bit the legislation that some of you may already be very familiar with, and if you're not and you want to be offering this service to your clients, it's certainly a piece of the legislation that you want to get familiar with. And in fact, our training course focuses very heavily on this area of the guidance as well. So in this next question, you're going to see 4 questions, sections A, B, C, and D. And for each question, you're going to see a slider. The slider goes from not at all to yes loads. And the idea again is through discussion with your client, you're going to assess where your client sits on the slider, depending on whether they're active or not in each of these 4 areas of R&D. Whether a client is or isn't active in an area of R&D is quite a binary question. And as I'm moving the toggle over, you're going to see the feedback at the bottom of the page updating, as well as assessing which type of R&D our client is active in. We're also trying to get a feel for intensity, because it could be that your client is active in more than one area. Maybe they're just dipping their toe in one area, but very active in the other. And we're just trying to gauge that. Okay. The one place that we don't want to be on all 4 of these sliders is to have the slider at the not at all end, because if we do find ourselves in that position, we're going to see another endpoint. So hopefully, as I'm moving through, I'm going to flag these endpoints to you, and you're going to be able to see how this process of essentially screening out ineligible clients happens, which means that you're not going to be following through and downloading a report that isn't robust and defensible. Okay, let me just add some content there so we've got something. So once we've identified the type of R&D the client is looking at, let's have a look at competent professionals. So identifying who the competent professionals are within the claiming company is really key, something that HMRC is very hot on. These are the individuals who are directing the technical problem solving within the projects. They are very highly skilled, highly qualified individuals with lots of potentially industry experience. These are the people that are finding this challenging work really hard. Okay, once we've identified the competent professionals, let's have a look at things like technical challenges. So a similar type of question to the commercial drivers section earlier on that we saw there, a list of categories with options that you can select from. So again, through a discussion with your client, you would identify the options that are most relevant to them and the work that they have been carrying out. Next, let's have a look at challenge levels. So thinking about all of the work that the client has been doing over the financial period, can we assess just how challenging this work was? We've got another slider for this question that goes from trivial through to really tough. And again, as I'm moving the toggle, you'll see feedback appearing at the bottom of the page. And again, through discussion with your client, you would be assessing where your client sits. If we find ourselves at the trivial end, we're going to see another endpoint, because what we're saying here is that there's potentially insufficient technological uncertainty to be able to move forward, and therefore we won't be qualifying for the benefit. The other extreme to trivial is really tough, and just to sort of give you a bit more insight into how we're trying to prompt conversations between you and your client is when we're at the really tough end, if you see the feedback at the bottom, what we're trying to get underneath is, did your client experience any failure? So not commercial failure, but technical failure. Did your client come to the meeting and not include any projects that didn't work out, that they weren't able to continue or overcome the issues that they were trying to diagnose? That's really key. Your client might not know that they can claim for failed projects. In fact, HMRC loves failure because it proves how difficult something was. So your client doesn't have to overcome the issue. They simply have to show that they've been active in trying to diagnose it. And we're trying to help you make sure that you're digging down and ensuring that your client has got everything on the table there. Let's have a look at outputs now. So outputs is referring to evidence that your client has to support the work that they're claiming for. And this is really, really key and is going to become even more key as time goes on. If there's ever an inquiry situation or an audit check, HMRC will want to understand the justification for why certain projects have been claimed for. So it's very important that you remind your clients to keep good projects and keep good archives. Just to be very clear though, we're not asking you or your client to produce any of this information up front. There is just a small paragraph within the reports that is just stating, should there be any questions or queries raised, this is the type of information your client can provide. On that basis, it's very important they're also very honest about what they do and don't have as well. Let's handle now one of the large complexities of the scheme, so grants. Grants can affect how spend is routed, and we want to show HMRC that we understand this and demonstrate that we've considered how grants may have been used over the financial period and how they've impacted potentially the claim. And this does include things like CBILS and business bounce back loans as well. So the very first question that we're going to ask is demonstrating to HMRC that we've done our due diligence. So what was the total amount of grants and subsidies that the client received over the period, popping the figure in that box there. The next question that we're then going to be asked is, okay, so out of those grants and subsidies received, how much was used against R&D? Now, it could be that you've already identified between you and your client that none of that grant funding touched the R&D. It was all used for something completely separate, let's say marketing or recruitment. That would be great. So let's just pop a 0 in that box and you'll see the feedback at the bottom of the page update, advising us that we can just move on to the next question because we don't need to be asked any more questions now. However, if your client does have some grant funding that was used against the R&D, similarly to the rest of the process, you are then taken through a series of filters and gateways to ensure that the impact of the grants is taken into account, and then costs in the background can be routed according to the inputs that you've provided the system with. Okay. The last bit of the project section, so just down here, is asking if we want to add any additional technical detail. So this is a bit where we can start to talk about individual projects that your client has been working on. You may have gleaned as we've worked through some of the questions in the project section that we've done this very top-down looking overview of all of the client's activity going across the whole of the financial period, but we haven't touched on individual projects yet. This is now our opportunity to do that. So this section here has been specifically designed to make it easy for users to only include content that HMRC needs to know about and what they're really interested in to make their assessment as to whether this client qualifies for relief or not. So very structured heading. So you've got a project title, a lead name, an area of science and technology that we would have already selected or identified earlier on in the process, a start and end date for the project as well, and then 3 key input boxes that are very much guiding you as to what you need to include here. So we're going to ask about the industry baseline for the project, we're going to ask about what the technical advance was, and we're also going to ask about the uncertainties. Now, you do not need to include every single project that your client is claiming for in this section. You can add as many as you want to just by clicking on this blue button. That will expose you to a fresh project template, and how many projects you choose to include is kind of a bit of a risk assessment on your part and your clients, depending on the size of the claim, the nature of the work being carried out, that sort of thing. And again, if you would ever need any help or advice on anything like that, we are here to guide you and help you there. Okay, so now we've identified all of the eligible activity, we can now work out what costs to associate.
Suz,
yes.
sorry to cut across you.
All right.
I was on mute there and I was trying to ask you a question. If you just go back to that section, the additional technical detail section. We got a question in beforehand. I'll just read out to you. It's a good place to address this. Examples of R&D claims that could be made by restaurants, bars, and cafes was the question. The reason I've just picked on that here is I think this is a good point to just talk about the technological advances, what the industry baseline is, etc. Pretty clear that I'm going to say in 99.99% of cases that restaurant, bars and cafes are not going to be addressing projects that meet these sorts of criteria. So although it's a very specific question about a sector there, I just wanted to make the point that the system is driving you to think about the specifics of the scheme and to kind of take you down a path where clearly projects and opportunities in markets like that are going to get filtered out almost by default. But it's perhaps worth also mentioning, we've talked about content that we've got, training courses, etc. We do run regular webinars about eligibility in specific sectors, and we also publish blogs on eligibility in specific sectors. And we've got a couple of blogs on, I think it's food and drink, that we'll post at the end of the session to address that specific question. But sorry to sort of cut over you there, but I thought that was a good point to just raise at that point in the demo.
Well, that's great, thanks. And that's a really good question. And the nice thing about the blog content and the webinars that we push out are, although we talk about what is eligible in these sectors, we're also very keen to highlight what isn't eligible, just to always give a very balanced and transparent overview and make sure that you've got all of the information that you need to make a good decision between you and your client. So what to look for and what to certainly avoid. Okay, so as I mentioned, back to the app, sorry. We've done the projects, so now we want to identify what costs we can eke out as part of the process. So there are only a certain number of costs that you can claim for in an R&D tax claim. And again, just much like the other parts of the system, it's just a case of going through all the questions in sequence and identifying what is and isn't relevant. The first question that we ask about is staff costs. There's two ways that you can collect staff costs. You can either collect them globally, which is the view that you can see in front of you here just now. If you're using the global view, the next question that you're going to be asked is to apportion how much staff time overall was spent on R&D. Obviously, you would need to have a calculation methodology in the background to have come up with what this percentage will be on this slider. And again, something that you want to keep handy just in case there are any questions asked. I'm just going to flip back to the salaries question just now quickly, just to show you that a much more granular and robust way of being able to collect the staff costs is to use an individual cost capture. So you can toggle at this point if you want to, and you can add in individual staff names. You can do that manually if you want to, just by clicking on the big cross and adding in more rows. However, we do have a CSV upload option as well, so you can use that. It's much easier. The final column on the right hand side here will always be left blank. Again, that would be a discussion with your client to identify how much time each individual has spent on R&D projects over the period. And if you're using this view, the next question that you're going to be asked isn't that slider question, because the system is going to take all of the data from this page and work out the overall staff time for you. Okay, and then it really is just a case of going through each cost. So we ask about employment allowance, reimbursed R&D expenses. We ask about software costs. So this isn't the cost of developing software. This is any licenses or subscriptions that were paid for in order for the R&D to be carried out. So what was the global spend? And then we're going to ask you to apportion how much of that spend was relevant to the R&D activity using a slider. Okay. We also ask about clinical trials. They're quite a rare spend to come up against, but if there are any costs that you want to exclude, all you need to do is click on the tick box, which will expose the next question to you and exclude that one. And then you're going to see, a running theme start to gather. So what was the raw material spend? And then what was the apportionment? Same for heat and light, total spend and apportionments. And then we ask about things like EPWs, so externally provided workers or agency staff, and also subcontractors as well. You'll notice on these two questions, we've got two boxes, one for connected and one for unconnected providers in these two scenarios. The difference between those two fields is the filter that the spend will be put through. So whether it's 100% or 65% of the spend that will be taken into account. Always put the global figures into these boxes and the system will do the filtering out for you. I've got a 20k spend for an unconnected limited company for this example scenario claim here. So the very last question that I'm going to be asked is what percentage of that spend was relevant to R&D? So,
Suz, I've got a question from Michael. I've also got your question, Nick. I'll ask that when we get to towards the end. But the question from Michael is on costs. If a company keeps timesheets, can the days and cost per days be entered, or would you have to do that in an Excel spreadsheet and then enter the data like you just shown us?
I'll take that one on, Suz. Yeah, the answer is the latter, Simon. So in that case, we just recommend doing the calc separately, because obviously if you've got that data, you'll be able to easily work out the proportion of days versus the full salary for the year. So just do that as a separate calculation.
Yeah, do it as on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and then put the percentage in the software, and then obviously keep the Excel spreadsheet for the evidence if anybody ever comes back to the 12% or whatever figure it is. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Michael.
No props. Thanks, Michael. Okay, so we are at the end of the process. We've done all the data entry required. You might remember that I mentioned that you can collaborate with your clients and that they do have a restricted view of the question set. So this is the last page that a collaborator will see in this scenario here. In collaborator mode, they will have a blue button at the bottom of the screen that you can see here, but theirs will say submit. When they click submit, their access to the system is completely removed, and they get a thank you message, and then you're going to get an email to advise you that that collaborator has submitted their data, and then it's with you to take whatever the next steps are, whether you organize a review meeting, whatever those are, but that's with you to organize between you and your clients. As a user of the software, you're going to see a review button. So this is for your eyes only, unless of course you're choosing to share your screen with your client. That's absolutely fine. And you are coming into a claim summary review page. So on the left-hand side, you have an output of all of the numerical data that has been collected over the question sets, just giving you a chance to stop and take a breath and make sure that everything makes sense before we go forward to finalize the claim. So you can see we've got lots of edit functionality at the side as well. So you can nip in and out of the question set as many times as you need to until you're ready to finalize. Okay, and on the right hand side here, you're going to see something that I've purposely made look a bit scary. This is our automated claim risk assessment. So this is an automated in-app assessment of the claim. It is there to help you understand if there are any potential weaknesses and enable you to take steps to mitigate against them. So this automated assessment is looking at a variety of factors. So things like the company sector, the size of the claim versus the company turnover, if grants are present, if there are shareholdings, in order to benchmark the claim against claims for similar looking companies and provide a rating overall for how likely this claim may be to attract attention from HMRC and whether it's going to stand up to an inquiry. What this is not it is not a measure of eligibility. It is there simply to give you confidence that should the claim be pulled up for an inquiry or an audit check, that you know it is robust and defensible. Okay. Below the
yes, Suz, just this is a question from me. When you say that it compares it against similar claims, is that claims within the Whisper sphere, if you like, within the software, or is there a global database or a national database that you can compare to?
It's actually based on the experience of the team, Simon. Okay. So it's not just within the sphere of what we've done as WhisperClaims and those 2,300 claims that we've done so far. It's actually the experience of the team prior to that. So amongst the team, we've probably worked on the best part of 10,000 claims over the years. So it's actually data pulled from that experience.
Brilliant, thank you. And then just briefly, as Nick's got, can the software be white labeled?
Yeah, actually, that's a really important point. See where we've got the WhisperClaims logo up on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
To mention that. Normally, that's the firm's logo. So it is essentially a white label product, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Nick, your second part of the question around price models, we're going to get to towards the end, Nick. So, okay, brilliant, thank you.
That's right. Thanks for those questions, Nick. Okay, so very quickly, let me just finish off and then we'll get on to the support and pricing. Below the risk assessment, you're going to see an approximate qualifying eligible spends through one, or in this case is both the schemes, because I had a grant in this example here. You'll notice that the figures are very round. They are rounded down purposefully at this point, just to help you manage client expectations to a degree. But the reason why we give you an approximate qualifying spend at this point is to enable you to essentially gauge the value of the opportunity. It may be that when you started this process with your client, you didn't even know if they were eligible, and you've actually managed to get all the way through to the end and you've realized that there is a claim to be had. So it could be a much smaller opportunity than what you're expecting, or maybe much larger. It just gives you that opportunity to do a quick and rough run through of what the calculation of the benefit might look like. Maybe you haven't discussed commercial terms yet, and it just gives you an ability to have that visibility and move forward in those conversations. Underneath the approximate qualifying spend, you then have the fee that you're going to pay for the report. We will just come on to fees in just a moment. But again, the nice thing is before you finalised or downloaded the report, you're already aware as to what you're going to be charged for this report, which again just gives you that extra layer of visibility and making conversations a bit more easier. Okay, so we've gone through the whole process. We've identified we've got an eligible claim. And now we want to finalize. So this is what we call our wow moments. So this is the bit where the system's going to do all of the heavy lifting and all of the legwork for us. There's no writing reports or doing final calculations. The system's going to baseline all of the figures and write the narrative for the report for us. It's really quick. That's it done. Okay, so that's the report ready for us to now download. One additional thing to mention before we download the report is a service we offer to our users, which is our WhisperClaims claim review service. This is, unlike the automated risk review on the previous page, is an optional layer of reassurance should you feel you need it. Unlike the automated risk review, this is a review performed by one of our in-house R&D tax experts, so generally in the people who you'll be speaking to on the support line. It's essentially a deep dive, desk-based review of your client's claim. It reviews all of the publicly available information about the company. They will review the project descriptions at the end of the project section that have been written. They will look and analyse the costs and just provide an overall assessment as to how the claim hangs together with advice from our perspective that you might want to take on board. Because this is an additional service, there is a £100 fee for this. Some of our users choose to have all of their claims reviewed every single time, whilst others will request a review for their first few claims just while they're building their experience and confidence in offering the service, and then maybe just tap into this again when they potentially have some trickier claims that may be perceived to be quite high value or maybe a slightly higher risk. Okay, you would normally see the fee at the bottom of the page here, but because this is my training account, I've got lots of prepaid credits, so that's why there's zeros. But now we're ready to download the report. So when I click download now, that's when we take payments, and then that's when you're going to be exposed to the report. So this is the PDF, and this is the Word version that we saw in the dashboard at the start of the process. Let me very quickly just download this PDF for you now so that I can give you a quick look at what the report looks like. There we go, that's it done. So essentially the report structure is based on our extensive experience of working within the R&D tax relief consultancy sector for many, many years, as Mike's already said. And it's designed in a way to give your clients and HMRC confidence that all of the right questions have been asked. So there's a nice cover page here that's got your client's name, company number, the year end, and a named contact. So this is the most senior person within the claiming company who's responsible for the claim. And then what you're going to see as I start gently scrolling through is that all of those buttons, sliders, drop downs, multiple choice questions that we've been looking at has been turned into this very structured, very clean, clear headings and clear paragraphs report that the software has written for us in the background. So this is all of the narrative that you can see that I'm scrolling through to support the claim for relief. And as I move forward, we are just going to come to, in just a moment, the cost section that I want to show you. So it's the next page coming up here. So we lay out all of the qualifying spend for you in really clear tables. So you've got all of your QE here, and then all of the relevant breakdowns. And then on the next page, we're going to see the raw eligible spend. So these are the figures here that you would add onto the CT return and calculate the benefit from. The next page, we've got some notes and assumptions based on the figures for the inspector reviewing the claim. And then finally, we've got two potential appendix here. So depending on how much or how little information you've given the app, we've got the additional technical detail section, which were all the input fields at the end of the project section that again has now been turned into nice looking paragraphs and headings. And you do have a Word version of the document as well. So if you did have some additional content you wanted to pull in, maybe some assets like photos or graphs or charts that you want to add in as examples to support the projects, or perhaps you want to add your own branding or your client's branding, you can do that using the Word version of the document. And then finally, so long as we've filled out the detailed staff cost view as opposed to using the global view that I showed you first, we also give you a breakdown of that information as well. That's me done.
Suz, just while you've still got the report up, there were a couple of questions that came in beforehand that again it seems appropriate to just sort of take on here. One was about how to minimise the risk of an R&D claim. I just wanted to make the point here that hopefully people have seen that what we've gone through here is a really structured process that's addressing every aspect of a claim that HMRC would want you to. So this output at the end should be precisely that, a sort of risk minimised document. So hopefully people have got a flavour for that as we've worked through it. The other just sort of slightly related question was, how do you see the latest crackdown by HMRC affecting R&D going forward? It's probably just worth mentioning there are a few changes to the scheme that have already been announced for April 23. They include things like every R&D claim needs to have an associated report. Every report needs to identify who the agent is that's prepared the report. Also needs to be signed off by the client. All of those things are features that we're building into the app. One or two of them are there already. So by 2023, we'll be sort of fully compliant with those new requirements. We also know that there are likely to be a few more changes in the pipeline in the autumn, and again, we'll be working hard to make sure that we build features into the system that make sure that you're compliant in submitting your documentation. I guess kind of overriding observation is that some people on the call might be aware of this already. There hasn't been a specific need to submit a report with every claim. It's best practice, but there hasn't been a requirement to do that. But that is changing in April 23. So you will need to submit reports. And of course, that's what our system's all about. So thanks for that. So sorry, I just thought it was important to cover those two questions there.
No problem at all. And they're great questions. So that's it from me actually though, Mike. So I'll switch you back to the presentation and over to you for support and pricing.
Your chance to go and have a swig of your tea now, isn't
it? There you go.
Brilliant. Thanks. Right. So pricing, I've noticed a couple of questions have come through about pricing. So core pricing is we charge 2 fees with £100 a month subscription fee. That gives you access to the system and all of the support. I'll talk about support in a second. And then we charge a download fee for each report, as Sue demonstrated just there. That fee's capped at £600. So the most you would ever pay for a report is £600. So given that spread that I mentioned earlier on, we've had a few claims go in at over 7 million of eligible spend. They were still £600 reports. We actually base the cap on a split of 2.5% of the of any SME spend and 1.25% of any RDEC spend up to that cap. So that crazy example I gave you of a really small claim, £1,000 worth of eligible spend, that was obviously all through the SME scheme. So 2.5% of that was a £25 download. So that gives you an idea of how the pricing works. We've mentioned enterprise pricing over on the right-hand side. We do have some higher volume users. In those cases, we do put together bespoke pricing packages where we either go with a higher monthly subscription and a much reduced download fee, or in very high volume cases, we look at a fixed monthly price based on forecasts. So we're always really happy to talk to people about bespoke pricing for volume. Thanks, Suz. Next one. So support, we've mentioned support several times through the course of the demo. So bunch of learning tools, webinars, training course, YouTube channel, ebook series. So a whole host of things you can either access through the website, through YouTube, or the directly delivered training course. A couple of people I think have asked about the price of the training course, so I'll just mention that. Everything other than the training course is included in the subscription fee. We do charge for the training. That's £225 a head. It's delivered to a very small audience. We restrict the audience to 5 people at a time, just to keep it a very sort of personal service, if you like. Plenty of support in the session. So that's £225 a head. We're going to show you some dates for those in a second. And then hands-on support. So we've got this in-person scheme and eligibility support, so you're able to access people through email, telephone, and probably most importantly at the moment, live chat. That's probably our biggest channel. We've got the risk review within the app and the separate claim review. You've seen that. We've also got some exclusive groups. So within WhatsApp and Facebook, we have community groups there where you're able to chat to your peers about R&D challenges. They are exclusive to our subscribers. And then the last thing, somebody's asked us a question about marketing, and I'll just touch on that for a second. We offer a portfolio review service. So this is where Ian and our support team will look at your entire customer base, go through them on an individual basis, look at background to the company, what sort of work they're involved with, and they'll do a red, amber, green review of that client portfolio and give you an indication of who the people are on that list that we would encourage you to go and talk to about R&D. Again, that's included in our subscription fee. So that's support. So it's back to you. Thanks, Suz.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm just touching on the training. So as Mike said, we run one course per month. We don't normally do a July course because it's normally a very quiet time of the year with holidays, but we've had a lot of interest. So we're actually holding a course in July, so that'll be the 6th, and our next one will be the 8th. But our website's the best place to go for seeing a full rundown and schedule of all of the events that we have, and booking is done via Eventbrite via the website as well. So just a bit more background, the course is called The Fundamentals of the R&D Tax Scheme, and it is there for anybody who is completely brand new to R&D tax, but also suitable for anybody looking to be even more equipped with even more expert knowledge about eligibility and the scheme and some of its nuances. And as we said, it's run by Jen and Ian, the same people that you talk to through support. So it's all very well kept in within the team. We've also touched on the YouTube channel as well, so I believe there's going to be some links going into the chat box at the end where you can tap into our YouTube channels, full of all of our video, podcast and collaboration content, and is one place for you to be able to watch back and enjoy previous sessions and events that we've had. If you're a subscriber to WhisperClaims, you can get access to our back catalogue of exclusive insights, which covers all of the really nitty-gritty eligibility stuff. And if you're not a subscriber, you can just review the highlights, but you can see everything else that isn't purely eligibility content related. If anybody today has been inspired, we do have an offer that if you want to book a demo or a trial today, you're going to get a 30-day free trial of WhisperClaims, which also includes one free report download token and also one free claim review token as well. The claim review is the bit right at the end of the process where you might want to get Jen or in to do a full review of your claim for you, just that extra pair of eyes, which does normally cost £100, plus all the other support that you get around the app. Anyway, if you'd like a demo or a trial, just please get in touch. And again, there'll be some links in the chat box, but you've got my email address in front of you there, or you can use the website to book through as well. That's us. Any more questions?
Brilliant. So Mark, we'll pop that contact details in the chat box. So obviously, if you want to take up that offer, then please get in touch with Suz at whisperclaims.co.uk, and we can go from there. And Mark's popped all the things in. If I just stop that, and then we can see that lots of people. Yeah, yes, we've got 8 minutes max to ask lots of different questions. So just to top off, Dora's asked, is there a cap on the number of claims that can be submitted?
No cap. So if you're paying the subscription, then the only limitation actually with the subscription is the number of seats, so the number of users, but that's capped at 10, and actually it will be a very large firm that had more than 10 people doing R&D claims. So no cap on the number of claims.
Very much so. Laura, you asked the question about the in-house training covered by the monthly subscription fee, and I know Mike has answered that off. Izzy's asked, is the training course suitable for people that have never done R&D work? And I think you answered that just after Izzy posted the question.
Yeah, definitely. As Sue said, anyone who's got no background in it will, get a level of expertise from doing it. But equally, people who've been working in the field for a while, it's a great refresher as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Mark's popped those links in the chat box now. So if they book a demo, basically they get the first month for free, and they get a claim for free as well, together with a review. So basically, within 30 days, they could have made a claim and be confident in making claims going forward. That's the offer today.
That's it. And we encourage people to make that a real claim, so that they're actually going to charge their clients for it, make some money out of it, which again gives them that confidence to make the leap to pay us the subscription and go ahead and work with us.
Yeah, I would go further than encouragement, Mike. I would demand that they do it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the customer sees no value in it whatsoever, and it just becomes a waffly mess. Yeah, so let's demand that they make use a proper real life example in order to make it worth your while and their while as well.
And that's reminded me of another question I think we got beforehand, Simon, which was about market pricing. So I talked about the price of our service, but I think we've had a couple of people ask about what's going on in terms of market pricing. So I'll just touch on that for a second. Probably 5 years or so ago, there were people out there still charging 35% contingent fee. So that's 35% of the tax benefit delivered to the end client. There are still people out there charging 25, 28%. Some of the bigger specialist firms certainly pitch at that level. I would say the market, there's been a lot of competition over the last few years. The market's been squeezed. So those prices are probably more in the range of 15 to 20% today. The reality of our customer base is we see a lot of people shifting towards fixed fees once they start working with us, because of course they can see how much work is involved or how little work compared to the longhand way of doing this. So that gives them confidence then to offer a fixed fee. And where they're doing that, we see that in the range of £2,500 to £3,000 as a fixed fee. We have a bunch of people who are still going with the contingent model and actually just undercutting those bigger players. So we don't try and influence how our customers price, but we're certainly giving them an opportunity to be really competitive against some of the big players out there.
Brilliant. Thank you. And do you find as well, just to finish off on that people have multiple years? Because I know some of the more, what should we say, more sophisticated providers lock people into like a 12.5-year contract and stuff like that. Do you find that?
Well, it's certainly a practice that's out there. I can't think of an example of a customer of ours that is doing that. I mean, what we're encouraging our users to do is sort of battle against what I would describe as bad practice that's going on out there in the market. So I'd probably, if I did see one of our customers doing that, I'd probably have a quiet word with them.
We don't. It's not 12.5. It's 3 years is the one that I'm most common saying. We do not do that either. So we have 4 minutes left. So some quick fire questions. Izzy's asked: does the training course give CPD points? Yes. So CPD generally is kind of self-certified. So I'd say most people that go on the course do self-certify and claim the CPD points. Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. Nick has asked, are there any light touch marketing materials that we can use and white label to attract clients?
We haven't got any resources like that. Perhaps the thing just to remind everybody of is that portfolio review. So we will help you identify specific clients of yours to go and speak to. I mean, again, it's a kind of a combination of all of that content we've mentioned. So the webinars, YouTube channel, etc., is all about sort of giving you confidence to get into that dialogue with clients. But we don't have any templated marketing material as such.
Right, okay, and Nick, I am in that camp as well. So if you just blast out general marketing to people, then it generally, you know what you do with it. You either delete it or you bin it or whatever. It's far more proactive for me to get that list of clients, go through it, and then attack. Work with the low-hanging fruit first. So the biggest and the ones that are most likely to be open to it. So definitely do that. Can the software be white labeled? We talked about suggested pricing models we use to charge, which you've talked about. Michael's asked, if the accounting period is longer than 12 months, does the system split the claim into the relevant tax periods?
Yeah, so you're setting the dates within the system. I think we skipped past that question, didn't we? So in the demo, but yeah, you're setting the tax year for each, essentially the claim period for each claim.
Yeah, but sorry, if the accounting period is 18 months long, then obviously the corporation tax period gets split into 12 months and 6 months.
Yeah. In that particular case, you'll be looking at 2 separate claims.
Okay. You would have to do the maths to split the numbers between the 2 separate claims.
Yes.
You can't set up an 18-month claim period and then the software break it down for you.
No, you'd be looking at 2 separate periods in that scenario.
Okay. And I would imagine that there might be certain expenditure in certain periods that need to go on different claims depending on what it is.
Occasion that sort of scenario when it comes up, again, it's a good reason to tap into the support team and have them help sort of figure out what's the best way to deal with that scenario.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Dora, the links in the chats. You can click on them now, obviously, and when we send the email out with the recording, the links will be in the email as well, and they'll below the YouTube video when you go on and have a look. So yes, you'll get those links. And then the last question from Nick, is there any marketing material to inspire people to invest in R&D rather than claim for the fact that they have? So Nick's asking questions around, have you got anything to encourage people to do that as part of their strategy?
I mean, again, no, we don't have templated material, but it's this, I guess what I'd refer to is the broader content that we've got again. So the blog posts and webinars particularly, where we're talking about very specific sector type scenarios. So that, you know, the purpose of that is to enable you to go and chat to companies who sit in that sector and to do precisely that. It's encouraging them. Not, I mean, I guess, you know, your role as an accountant is not just to reflect the tax benefits, but it is to provide that inspiration for future work, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So Nick says thank you. Look, lots of thank yous that are coming through. That just leaves me to remind people, if you click on that whisperclaims.co.uk/demo, book a demo, then you can have the first month free, the first claim free, the first report free, and the first review free, as well as part of being a member of the Accountants Mastermind community. And Mark's just popped that in the chat box again for you, so it's at the bottom of the box. I will leave the webinar running for 30 seconds or so when we finish, in order to make sure you can click any links that you need to click. That just leaves me to say thank you to Mike and Suz for coming along and sharing the software. I'm sure you've inspired, challenged, and supported lots of members within the community to take action and deliver and provide this service for their customers. So thank you for coming along. And as always, thank you to the members of the community that have come along and asked the questions. As I always say, it's the questions that you ask as we go through these presentations that make these events unique. So thank you, and thank you, Mike and Suz, again. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.